So, dear Top 5's finest viewer, you say you don't scare easily, huh? That you're big and brave enough to stomach the most intense Hollywood horror movies, the wildest roller coasters, and any number of other frights that shake lesser people to their core? Well, what about visiting some of the country's most famous and infamous haunted houses? How do you think you'd hold up there? Let's find out as we explore 5 haunted basements we dare you to visit. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5, McKay Avenue School Basement. Something strange and inexplicable continues to occur in Edmonton's oldest brick school. Locked doors are discovered unlocked, firmly hung pictures are discovered askew, heavy furniture is mysteriously moved, gleaming maple floors are scraped, cabinet drawers are found open, and lights are discovered blazing in previously darkened areas of historic McKay Avenue School. Reports of ghosts inhabiting McKay Avenue School first surfaced shortly after the building was opened in 1905. At that time, mysterious voices and sounds were reported heard in a section of the building adjacent to 2 stone fireplaces that once were functional. In recent years, a spate of ghostly activities has resurfaced in the old landmark. Ron Lady, custodian and building preservation technician at the historic school, has had numerous encounters with the ethereal beings that supposedly haunt the building. One of Lady's major responsibilities at the school is maintaining security in the almost century-old building. A veteran of 18 years of service at the landmark institution, Lady is convinced that he is not alone in protecting the old school. He firmly believes that historic McKay Avenue School is the home of several phantoms, and cites a number of personal encounters with the spirits that frequent the 3-story building. Another story from retired school principal George Sherman recounts moaning sounds emanating from the school's attic as late as the 1960s. Yet another story of ghostly encounters was recalled by the late Ina Schneider, a secretary at the school in the early 1990s. Claiming that something strange brushed past her on several occasions, Mrs. Schneider would enter certain sections of the basement area of the school only when she was accompanied by a colleague. Schneider's encounter with the spirits in the school's basement paled in comparison with painter John McCormick's experiences in the same basement. McCormick was convinced that something in the school repeatedly attempted to push him off his stepladder perch whilst he was painting. So intense was one encounter that McCormick refused to work in the basement area for the remainder of his contractual period at McKay Avenue School. Recently, a team of respected psychics participated in a night-long vigil at historic McKay Avenue School. Each of the ghost hunters detected the presence of spirits in the old building. Their conviction was confirmed by images from a time-delay camera which photographed some weird shapes hovering over the old wooden staircase. Number 4, John Soden House Basement. It's been a source of mystery and chatter since its construction in 1926. The enigmatic Soden House is an anomaly on an otherwise charming and SoCal bright Franklin Avenue in Los Feliz. Designed by Lloyd Wright, the Mayan Revival style house has been called cultic brooding, a gothic pile out of Vathek, like Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Jaws house. In recent years, it's gained a new, much darker notoriety as the alleged murderous lair of the Black Dahlia's killer. In the late 1910s, the young architect Lloyd Wright came to Los Angeles at the request of his father, the legendary Frank Lloyd Wright. Over the next few years, the younger Wright worked with his father on many commissions, including Los Feliz's famous Hollyhock House. During the 1920s, Los Feliz was a flower-filled enclave of silent movie stars and middle-class professionals. Retired artist John Soden and his wife Ruth commissioned Lloyd to design a unique showplace where they could throw parties and put on amateur theatrics. In 1945, Dr. George Hodel purchased the already iconic house, which was so confusing to most average mortals. There was nothing average about George Hodel. The suave, brilliant doctor's VD clinic catered to many elite Angelinos, and his friends included surrealist artist Man Ray and director John Huston. Hodel moved into the gothic pile on Franklin, and his ex-wife Dorothy and her children soon joined him. But like many fairy tales, life in this secluded fortress was not all white knights and fairy godmothers. George frequently beat his sons in the basement. Jesus. After George died, his son Steve, a retired LAPD detective, was going through some of his father's possessions when he found 2 pictures of a lovely dark-haired girl. He soon became convinced that the photos were of Elizabeth Short, aka the Black Dahlia, whose unsolved 1947 murder and mutilation had long been the stuff of Hollywood legend. So, is the legend of the monstrous doctor in the roadside fortress true? In 2013, Steve Hodel claimed that a cadaver dog had indicated that human remains had been or were present in the basement and behind the house. As of fall 2015, there have been no excavations at the house. The place is now known as a place of evil where ghosts walk the basement. Number 3. Merchant's Cafe. The Merchant's Cafe was constructed in 1980 and designed by W.E. Boone, a direct descendant of Daniel Boone. The cafe is one of the oldest operating restaurants at its original location in the Seattle area. When it opened its doors as a saloon, they served 5-cent beers to miners waiting to visit the upstairs brothel. That's miners who mine for gold, not kids. The rooms of the upstairs brothel are now private apartments. Tucked away under the sidewalk that was once lit by the purple glass of the old city skylights sits a bar perfect for that time. During the Great Depression, patrons were offered free food such as finger sandwiches and hard-boiled eggs with their nickel beers. With the repeal of Prohibition in 1933, the sign was changed to read Merchant's Cafe, Beer and Restaurant. The property passed through many hands and changed as the surrounding atmosphere grew to the historic district that it is today. The new owner has taken much pride in restoring the property and business to its natural beauty. Along with obtaining this historic building, he has inherited its ghosts. A tale that is told among the employees is that of a little girl and boy that haunt the basement of Merchants. A fire in 1938 struck Merchants and took these young lives. Here, many encounter sights of small shadowy figures lurking about and play games on the staff. Also, an unfamiliar man appears sometimes with a doll. He gave it to the owner and asked for it to be kept for the ghost girl so she'd have something to play with. The doll remained at the bar and over time showed all the signs of actually being used, such as hair messy, dirt on clothing, ribbons undone, and its position being moved around. Sadly, one day the doll simply disappeared or became lost. Panicked, the bar offered a reward, but the doll never returned. The owner searched the internet for the exact same doll and, when found, ordered a replacement. That doll now sits in the bar for the ghost girl. Merchant's Cafe has survived many obstacles like the Gold Rush, Prohibition, the Great Depression, a fire, and even the changing of ownership throughout her 121 years. Today, Merchant's Cafe's brochures heighten the aura of naughtiness past by proclaiming, "All are welcome, including the ghosts." Number 2. Farnsworth House. This is a solidly built structure whose beginnings go back to 1810 when a family home was built of a solid, durable wood with the highest craftsmanship. No shortcuts were taken. 23 years later, a John McFarlane owned the home and added a 3.5-story, equally high-quality brick addition to enlarge and modernize his home, which also made it a considerable fortress of sorts. The retreating Confederate soldiers also noticed what a fortress this home was, and especially liked the garret window in the attic, a perfect place for snipers to pick off Union soldiers on Cemetery Hill, just 100 yards away during the 3-day bloody battle. The Sweeneys fled to safety and a group of Confederate soldiers took positions within the home, especially in the attic. Unfortunately, one of the snipers' stray bullets went through a home not far away where Jenny and Georgia were making bread for the Union side. The bullet penetrated Wade's door, killing Jenny Wade in her kitchen. After the Battle of Gettysburg, Union forces were also attracted to this fortress-like home and set up a headquarters there. Sooner or later, the Sweeneys were able to move back into their home. They probably noticed the over 100 bullet marks in the southern wall of the brick addition, as visitors do today. Around the turn of the century, both structures became a bed and breakfast inn, perhaps to take advantage of the people traveling to visit the Gettysburg battlefield, a place where over 50,000 men died in battle, and to visit the cemetery where perhaps friends and loved ones were buried. The inn was named for a brave Union Civil War officer, General John Farnsworth, who died along with 65 of his men, charging the right flank of General Longstreet's Confederate position. Because it's one of the most haunted houses in Gettysburg, the owners have put their spiritual residents to work, so to speak. So, the owners operate a theater for ghost stories in the basement, and they have ghost tours as well. They have haunted and unhaunted rooms for guests to stay in, covering all the bases. It's just like smoking and non-smoking. Visitors who want a paranormal experience like to stay in the 1864 era older rooms, although they are now warned by the staff. When the inn is quiet and no one's in the attic, the living is treated to a Jew's harp concert, played by an entity soldier still on duty in the attic. Invisible presences have been known to pay the living a visit by sitting on their beds. Number 1. Connecticut House. In 1986, Carmen and Al Snedeker moved to the small town of Southington, Connecticut, with the purpose of being closer to the hospital at which their oldest son was being treated for Hodgkin's lymphoma. Having fallen on hard financial times, the family jumped at the chance to rent what appeared to be the perfect house. It was large enough for their family, which included 3 children and a cousin, and the rent was in their affordable price range. It was while they were moving in that Al made a startling discovery. In the basement was a peculiar room that was complete with embalming tables and tools. The house, it turned out, used to be a funeral home. Moreover, the basement, which was sectioned into several rooms, was the only room deemed large enough to serve as the 2 boys' bedroom. Not long after, Carmen says she began experiencing strange phenomena, like items disappearing and her children reporting seeing strange people in the house, as well as hearing voices and the sounds of hundreds of birds taking flight. Her oldest son, who was at the time in the middle of radiation treatment, began to exhibit radical personality shifts, becoming withdrawn and angry. He brooded and began writing poetry with necrophiliac themes. Mop water was reported to turn blood red, and the scents of rotting flesh and decay were reported throughout the house. She was also frightened of apparitions that she saw, one with long black hair and black eyes, the other with white hair and eyes and wearing a pinstripe tuxedo. It was then that Carmen decided to contact controversial paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Whether true or not, it sure makes for one hell of a story. The house surely seems like one that would be ripe for a haunting, and whatever did go on in that house, the effects of it are being felt now by the current owners, but not in the form of supernatural boogeymen. Today, hordes of photographers, curious gawkers, and paranormal enthusiasts flock to the home with hopes of getting a glimpse of the famous house from hell. Alright, Top 5ers, if you haven't already, make sure to visit our other channel, The Brilliant, for even more interesting list videos that'll blow your mind. Oh, but I'm warning you, the videos over on The Brilliant are extremely addicting to watch as well. There'll be a link in the description to the channel, so make sure to come and visit us. Or you can go to our latest video popping up on screen right now. Oh, and have you visited thefinestpost.com to enjoy the most amazing articles you will ever get to read?